only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to 612 Vikings. I'm your host, Dustin, alongside Drew, and it is officially NFL Draft Week. The draft is only in a couple days on Thursday, and if you guys are listening to this, we're going to give you guys a final mock draft for the entire NFL, along with the Vikings in there, your favorite NFL team. And then we're going to kind of go through some other Vikings news as well. So, Drew, how are we doing tonight? It's a perfect Monday morning, and I don't know about you, but I'm going to go watch Draft Day one of these days before the actual NFL Draft.
Yep, that's the yearly tradition. I always do it on Draft Day, physical Draft Day, so I'll probably do it after I get off of work. But right now it just feels like a kid counting down on Christmas, just waiting for those presents to come on down and wake up that morning and realize it's Draft Day. So, they got to get them one of those, what are those chocolate calendars, like those little advent calendars just for the NFL draft or something like that. Got to get something like that. So that's kind of how it feels like right now. And yep, exactly. You get a little chocolate jersey or football helmet or something like along that line. But it's just a lot of it's the unknown. This is where dynasties are born and where dumpster fires are made. So hopefully we're on the right side of history and can continue building what we've built throughout the draft the last few years.
One thing that I have noticed too, unless I totally missed it, but like last year there was a huge trade, just by the Vikings themselves. I'm just kind of talking about the whole NFL, but last year there was a trade with, I think it was the Texans to swap picks, kind of move up. And this year, we haven't had any teams really make any pre-draft trades. I'm sure there'll be a couple, probably a good handful on draft day, whether that's first round or, there's always some in the later rounds of the draft too. But round one, there really hasn't been any trades. I mean, everybody's kind of been set in stone until draft day actually comes. What are your thoughts on that too?
Yeah, it's a little surprising. I think a lot of it is just more that there isn't really that quarterback that everyone's trying to get. I really don't think any of these quarterbacks from previous draft classes would have been in the top 5 quarterbacks selected from last year. I think just all these teams really kind of have their quarterbacks, questions temporarily answered, to say the least, I would say, or they're just severely young like the Vikings are, where they don't really need a guy. They're not searching for a guy. So I think that's kind of what it is more than anything. And we'll kind of break it down and I'll kind of go into a little bit more depth of kind of why we're not seeing a lot of trade-ups, especially pre-draft in this process so far.
Yes. So before we get to our NFL mock draft and all that, we are going to go through a couple Vikings-related news. And for that, we're kind of going to make it a little fun. We're going to go through the new Vikings jersey numbers. So, starting off right off the bat, I thought Jordan Mason was going to stick with number 24, but he's going to go with number 27, Cam Akers' old number. Drew, after I get done with this, you can probably give your thoughts on these two. I'm just going to run through these real quick. But safety Jay Ward is changing from 20 to 24, last worn by Cam Bynum, which obviously now is on the Colts. Walter Rouse is changing his number. This one I kind of expected as well. I don't even know who Matthew Cindric even is, but Walter Rouse is going from 78 to 73. Rondell Moore, our newly signed wide receiver, is going with number 4, last assigned to Brandon Powell. Safe to say Brandon Powell is probably not going to return to the Vikings. Eric Wilson, our friend that used to be on the Vikings, then was on the Packers for a little bit, is number 55. Used to be number 50, but this was last assigned to Andre Carter. Will Fries, our new big left or right guard, he is wearing number 76, last assigned to David Quessenberry. Hallisey, I don't even know how to even say his name. We won't worry about him, but Ryan Kelly, like I said, from Walter Rouse, is wearing number 78. Justin School, however you say his name, this is number 67. Ed Ingram's old number. Isaiah Rodgers, we know this one, number 2. Jonathan Allen, 93. So those are pretty much all the big ones. Right now we're still waiting on a couple other jersey numbers from the newcomers like Jeff Okuda and a couple others too. But Drew, what are we thinking about these new jersey numbers for our newcomers?
Yeah, it's just nice to kind of see the new threads with the last names and the numbers on it. Kind of could start imagining it a little bit. I know some people are, going to go into Madden, move players over, and now they know the numbers that they're going to use.
Nick.
So, yep, our friend over there at our wrestling channel over there, definitely. So I think that's just kind of nice. We're starting to get like these little pieces of the puzzle. Little piece by piece, brick by brick, to kind of see what this 2025 season is definitely going to look like, especially before the draft starts.
Yeah, and like I said, once the draft comes around and that's all settled, we'll get everybody's jersey numbers, and these are not technically official. Once week 1 rolls around, or I guess the week before week 1, we'll get official jersey numbers. So Jordan Mason could potentially be number 24 if Jay Ward to be cut, or whatever. So right now this is just training camp numbers, preseason, everything like that. So it's not super official. Don't buy your jerseys quite yet if you guys are planning on doing so. But Drew, I think we are ready for the mock draft. Are you ready?
Yep. Yeah, we can definitely go into what round one's going to our thoughts on what round 1 could look like in this year. So, this is going to be more or less of what we would really do if we're the general managers. We're not going to try to speculate, certain teams, what they're definitely thinking, because, there's going to be that curveball in there. But this is just more, if we're the general manager of this team, what would we do in these situations? So yeah.
All right. So I don't know how you want to do this, but if you want to go back and forth, or
so you'll hit all of our teams. Make sure you hit round 1, or else we're going to be here forever. We're not Jordan Reed, our friend over at ESPN, who had the 7-round mock. So if you have ESPN Plus, definitely check that out if you want to see an entire projection of an NFL draft. We got the 1 round here for 2025. Dustin's going to name our mock 2.0. We did a Vikings mock last episode, so if you want to see what we're thinking for the Vikings and what we would do, and kind of like what we're kind of speculating, like news-wise, what we're kind of seeing out of the Vikings front, meetings and interviews, seeing that point of view per se. So this is going to be more of just the first round and what we kind of think will lead up to the Vikings pick. So right now, we got the Tennessee Titans picking number 1. It seems like Cam Ward is the consensus number 1 pick. Vegas has him at minus 20,000 to have him go number 1 overall. So seems like this is pretty much a lock for number 1. So we're going to put Cam Ward at number 1. At number 2, see, this is where I feel like it kind of gets interesting. I feel like, Dust, if you want to kind of chime in a little bit, it seems like we've gone from Travis Hunter, gone from Abdul Carter, and it just seems like we've been kind of going back and forth. So what are your kind of thoughts of that? This kind of, I feel like, before in previous drafts, we kind of know who like 1, 2, 3 are, and then 4, 5, it's kind of like the mystery part of the draft. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, without like looking at every team's needs to it is kind of hard. I mean, like you said, outside of the top 3 to 4 guys, it's really just a free-for-all. So, with the Browns at number 2, they really could go at any position here. I mean, there's really nothing off the table besides maybe defensive tackle and maybe a couple other positions too. But, to kind of guide on this, I could totally see them going with the Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. But, like I said, without looking at their team needs, I'll kind of have you probably cruise this ship for this round. So
you're all good. So I think for this one, I think Travis Hunter going to 2. I think Cleveland is going to kind of look for a new quarterback. I think this would be a good scenario where if kind of Shedeur Sanders falls in the draft, I think you could definitely see Cleveland make a late push for a quarterback. And I do think that if Shedeur Sanders is there somehow at 24. I think Andrew Berry is going to be calling Kwesi. They have that working relationship. Kwesi came from Cleveland, if you're kind of like a casual, newer Viking fan out there. So I think that working relationship is going to work out well. I think both teams will get a fair deal. So the Vikings get what they want. Cleveland gets what they want. So I think that would work out great for Minnesota if that were the case. So For this one, I kind of feel like Abdul Carr's. I don't want to say he's overrated, but I think he's getting. I don't think he's this generational number one prospect in this draft. I think he is a little bit overrated in that sense, per se. I think he's a good player. I just think he's very raw. So a lot of times these teams they want these bigger edge rushers like your Myles Garrett's or your TJ Watts, somebody who's maybe in like that 260 range. Abdul Carr is more 250, and he actually got moved to edge almost like near mid-season at Penn State. He was a stand-up linebacker beforehand. They got moved over to edge, so he's definitely learning the position. He could definitely be good, but he's definitely raw. So you can kind of, I think this kind of works out good for the Giants here because you got Brian Burns, you got Kayvon Thibodeau. You can kind of do what the Vikings are doing with Dallas Turner, kind of redshirt him for a little bit and then kind of plug and play Carter when you feel like he's ready. So I think Abdul Carter should be the pick here. I think you get a little bit more value at this position. So and I think the Giants could look at potentially quarterback too, and they could be in the Shedeur Sanders sweepstakes as well for if he ends up falling in this draft too. So Abdul Carter going to 3, I think is a good setup for him, just kind of getting that premium position out of the way. So this next pick for New England, I don't see them trading out. I think they're going to go with Will Campbell here. They need protection for Drake May, so I think Will Campbell, who's I think by far and away the best tackle in this class. I know there's questions about his arm length, but I think that's just people trying to find any sort of way to bring a guy down. Short arms have definitely been proven to work at left tackle. I think most recently being Rashawn Slater, who had question marks if he could play left tackle or guard, and he ended up being an all-pro left tackle. Tristan Wirfs doesn't have the longest arms in the world either, so I think that Will Campbell would be just fine in New England being a left tackle for Drake May. So and there's been some rumors with this next pick with Jacksonville. Jacksonville has been a team that Adam Schefter has been saying this could be a wild card pick, which I could kind of see a little bit. Yeah. Mason Graham, I think, would be the best player available for him. I think it fits, but I think maybe you could potentially see wide receiver, tight end in this scenario. So I want to do something a little different. I feel like Mason Graham's always being mocked to Jacksonville, so let's go with a little shakeup. Let's give him Tyler Warren. They don't have Evan Ingram anymore, so they really don't have that tight end that Trevor Lawrence is really comfortable with, and I feel like Tyler Warren is a good player for the Jacksonville system. Very similar to, I feel like, kind of like that TJ Hawkinson kind of style play where he can kind of play in the slot, can definitely play in line. And with Grant Udinski over down at Jacksonville now, I think he could definitely look to lock up that tight end spot and kind of alleviate that question mark over in Jacksonville. So this one, I think this is a no-brainer pick for Vegas. And John Spytek, the new GM over at Vegas, has just said we're okay with drafting running backs high. You're getting Ashton Genty right here for the Vegas Raiders, which Bears fans will be kicking and screaming, which is what we love to see out of them. So they don't get one of the best players in this draft. So Ashton Genty to Vegas gets that workhorse running back out of the way for Las Vegas for Pete Carroll, kind of that Marshawn Lynch-esque kind of player. For this one, the Jets, they need O-line help desperately. Tyron Smith retired, which makes it even worse for them. They're just looking for anybody that can just block outside of Barrett Tucker. So you're looking for that left tackle here. So I would look at Kelvin Banks in this scenario. I think Kelvin Banks is going to be, maybe a little bit of a reach for him in this spot, but it fills position of need. Armand Membao is more of that right tackle. I don't think they're really looking at that. I think you want to try to protect that blindside left tackle spot for Justin Fields over in New York. And then Carolina, this is going to be Jalen Walker. They've pretty much confirmed that this is going to be where they're going to take him. So Jalen Walker will be the pick here. Kind of that similar style of play where he can play stand-up linebacker, can play edge, kind of similar to Hassan Reddick when he came out, kind of similar to Micah Parsons when he first came out before he moved primarily to edge for both of them. I do feel like edge would be his position in the NFL. But seems like Carolina is really high on Jalen Walker for this one. So this one I think is definitely an interesting pick as well. So Ryan Ramczyk no longer with the New Orleans Saints. He just medically retired. So Wisconsin Badger, which I know Dustin is very much familiar with that and how he is as a player and how much they're going to miss him over there. So I don't think that they hit the panic button on Shedeur Sanders. I don't think you go and you just draft a quarterback just to go and fill a position of need for a year. I just feel like that's kind of reckless, especially you kind of are going to have to stick with him. It's essentially a 4-year contract, and you got to stick with him. So I don't think Shedeur Sanders would be the pick here. I know a lot of those popular mocks are kind of moving him towards that number 9 spot. I think this would be a pick for Membao to be the number 9 pick in this draft. Plays right tackle, very good. I think you keep Fuaga. You can kick him inside. Trevor Penning seems like he's gotten a little bit better, but I feel like they're going to try to see if they can get a little bit more out of him. So I think they're going to end up moving Tali Fuaga to the inside to play guard, and then keep Penning at left tackle, and then they'll have Membao at right tackle to replace Ryan Ramczyk over at the right tackle position in New Orleans. And that leaves our nemesis, the Chicago Bears, who feel like they're a little bit on the overrated side right now. I don't really see them getting that 10-11 win mark as some of these experts are predicting. I know Dustin's joking over here, thinking they're going to get trying to mock them a little long snapper here. As much as we'd love to see that, and we'd make fun of them. We'd see very much of a Chicago Bears pick. Yeah, screwed up for him. So we could do a goofy one later. But this one is very interesting because they brought in Amari and Hampton from North Carolina. The Bears are kind of moving to more of that zone scheme. A couple years ago, they went more gap and power scheme. And I think that's kind of why the Bears didn't re-sign Tevin Jenkins, just is because he was no longer a scheme fit in Chicago. So they ended up moving on from him, getting Joe Tooney in a trade with Kansas City, picked up Drew Dahlman, their new center of the future. They got Darnell Wright, who's a nice young player as well, and they picked up Jonah Jackson. So they're definitely looking at the zone blocking scheme there. I think with this one, I think you look at Amari and Hampton potentially for this. I think this would be, for me, I'd say this is a reach, but I don't know if there's really a team that you could potentially look to trade back for right now. So if you could bring up all of our prospects right now, maybe there's a potential trade here. I think you could potentially see a trade up for Mason Graham too. I think that could be a potential pick. And I honestly think this is a part where you could see a trade. So let's do a little trade because we haven't done one yet. So let's give Cincinnati a call, see if they're interested in. Yep, we're going to do a trade here. So I think the Bears are going to go ahead. They're going to call the Cincinnati Bengals in this scenario. I think the Bengals have the picks that they're willing to spend. I feel like they still feel like they can compete. So I would give them 17 and see if 81 could give them the deal for it. Okay, so let's do 81 and let's go to like next year's 6 for the Bengals. See if that does it. Can you? Yeah. And let's do next year's 5 too, just to kind of get them. Yeah, all right. So that'll do it for them. So the Bengals will give them next year's 5, next year's 6, a 3rd-round pick for this upcoming draft, and a 1st-round pick. So I feel like the Bengals, with them kind of having a underperforming year, I think they could look to potentially trade up in this draft, and I think they would take Mason Graham here. That D-line is god-awful right now. I think this would be a scenario where you can keep Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, they need defense, especially on the defensive line. Pretty much after DJ Reader left, they really haven't been the same there. So Mason Graham, you get your young defensive tackle of the future. I think this could be a scenario where you can end up keeping Trey Hendrickson a little bit happy too. So I think this is kind of a win for everybody for Cincinnati, and I think this is a win for Chicago because there really isn't a player on the board that really fulfills a need. Right, we're in the BPA filling a need potentially for him. So I think this could be a scenario where they trade back and win-win for both of them. So next one, we have the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is a pick where they're kind of kicking themselves that they didn't get Membao. I think they can look at that nice little right tackle spot to pair with Trent Williams. But I think they go corner here. I think they're going to look to lock down that corner spot. And I think this is going to be Will Johnson out of Michigan. They get a nice young player to kind of reload that defense a little bit. You know, they lost Dre Greenlaw. They lost Tuluna Hufanga, the safety, to Denver for both of them. So definitely going to have a nice little refresh there in San Francisco, especially with that zone-heavy scheme that the Niners like to run there. So I feel like that's a good fit for both of them. And then this is the one where I feel like Dallas is on cloud 9. They finally feel like they have a choice. You know, you can kind of, I think they'd be okay with taking a running back. They tend to throw these little curveballs in the draft. So before it was guys like Tyler Smith, who was seen as a little bit as a reach and has worked out for Dallas. So I think you can look at Amari and Hampton here. You can look at McMillan from Arizona. But Dustin, I'm gonna give you the the tie-breaking vote on this. So what do you kind of feel like if you're Dallas? What would you kind of look at in this scenario here?
Honestly, if you're paying Dak Prescott all that money to be your QB1 for the future, because that's what they paid him to be, he hasn't had a reliable running back to really hand the ball off to. I mean, they re-signed Ezekiel Elliott, but he's a shell of himself. Rico Dowell, I don't know. I'm not really high on him either, but they need a running back, and I feel like Hampton's a little high to be picking him right now, from what I've heard. But the Cowboys have a lot of problems. They really do. So I would probably lean running back here, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, so that'll leave Amari and Hampton. I think they're definitely kind of looking more in that zone scheme a little bit. Trying to stretch the ball out a little bit. They found a lot of success with Tony Pollard when he was around, kind of getting those little toss and stretch plays. So Amari and Hampton thrived in that zone scheme when they're blocking zone. And I think this is a guy the Vikings could definitely look at in the draft if he's there. I think that would be a strong consideration at 24 if he were to be there. But in this one, we're going to send him to Dallas. He seems to be flying up the boards. So next one is going to be Miami. Tron Armstead is officially retired, so he's no longer on the Dolphins. They need a left tackle. Josh Simmons is a little bit of a reach. All these tackles are pretty much gone. Boom, boom, boom. Especially with the Bears even being there too. I don't really see a scenario where these tackles might be there for him, especially on the left side. So I think this could be a trade back scenario. You could look at a team like the Seahawks if they want a wide receiver. Who else we got in the later parts? We've got Pittsburgh that could maybe look at a quarterback here. Michael Williams, you could maybe look at Atlanta if they want to move up and try to jump up and secure their guy. There's the Packers too. They need an edge really bad. Maybe they look at Michael Williams as well. But I think, and I just don't know if there's really a team that would be willing to trade up besides Pittsburgh. So we're going to give Pittsburgh a call, and we're going to have Shedeur Sanders go at number 13 in place
Where
of...
are we, the Dolphins?
Yeah, the Dolphins. Yep. So we'll be on the left side. I just feel like Pittsburgh's really the only team that really has a shot here. Or could we go Cleveland here? Just Cleveland move up to number 13 to go get Shedeur Sanders too? They're at pick 33.
That's a good one.
Yeah, let's try Cleveland because we're gonna see if we can pair them up with Hunter and let's do 33-67. I think, and then let's do 94. The other third round pick, and then let's go next year's third. And then for Miami, let's go with the 155. Let's try that. See if that can kind of move it to be a little bit more fair. So that way Cleveland's got some more picks. 155. Yep. So I think this would be a good spot for them. Miami's going to go ahead, rack up a bunch of thirds and second round picks. They can go get that left tackle they really want in the first pick of the second round, pick up a couple third rounders, and then get some ammunition for next year as well. So just kind of given the situation that I don't think they want to reach for a guy. So I think for this one, I think Miami would be a good. Oh, you got to go to 13. Up, yep, there you go.
It won't let me press trade for some reason.
Here, try exiting out and then go back in and see if it works for you.
Nope.
Okay. Let's try exiting out and then let's try to see if we can go back in again.
Out of like the whole thing?
Yeah, no. Just go back to trade and see if it works again. Try one more time. Maybe try going to a different team and then going back for Cleveland.
Sorry guys for the technical difficulties here. And then
yeah.
No, it won't let me do it for some reason.
Okay. Well, in this scenario, since we're only doing one round, we'll just give Miami Shedeur Sanders, and we'll just pretend it's Cleveland. In this scenario, Cleveland doesn't have another pick, so we'll just give them Shedeur Sanders at number 13.
Yeah, keep that noted.
Browns, so, yep, we'll keep it noted. So, next one will be the Indianapolis Colts. They're going to go Colston Loveland here. They need that tight end really bad. I think they're going to... I think this is... I think Colson Loveland is a good pick here. Kind of an underrated team I think Shedeur Sanders could go to, which I didn't mention with Cleveland. I think Cleveland could look at maybe Indianapolis looking to snag Shedeur Sanders at 14, potentially, if they feel like that's their guy. So I think could be a good reason why you could see Cleveland try to jump up and try to snag them both there. But Colson Loveland to the Colts will pair up with Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, get the weapons that they feel like they need to potentially make Daniel Jones a successful quarterback down in Indianapolis. So this next one, I think the Falcons, I think they're going to go ahead and redeem themselves. They're going to take the local boy in Michael Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia. I think they realized they kind of a little done goofed in last year's draft, kind of signing Kirk and then drafting Penix when they could have just had Penix all along, and then just drafted a bridge guy because they weren't going anywhere last year with Kirk. Not that Kirk we feel like is a bad quarterback. We're kind of going to go more of the route that Atlanta just didn't have the roster compared to Minnesota's to be a real threat in the NFC South. So, so they get a little redemption here, get a really good player. Some people could say that he's kind of an underrated player, could be a player I feel like could be drafted in the top 10, really, and they're getting him at 15. So should have had Dallas Turner last year. They get Michael Williams here at 15. So with this next pick, you're going to start seeing the run on edges here. So I feel like Arizona, they're going to go with Shamar Stewart here, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Just kind of feel like this is kind of a fit for them. They kind of run more of that 3-4-4-3 kind of look. I feel like Shamar Stewart kind of fits best for him. I think Mike Green's a little bit more of that 3-4 stand-up edge, a little bit more of a guy for him. And we got our next pick being the Bears. I think this is where you snag Mike Green here. They're kind of going more to that 3-4 look. They got Montez Sweat. He's starting to get a little bit older, not old enough where you feel like you're concerned a little bit, but you can kind of use Odegbo as more of that rotational edge guy, which I know they paid him a lot of money for it, but you maybe can do something like what Minnesota's doing if you're a Chicago fan, and just kind of maybe ease Mike Green into the role a little bit. But I feel like Mike Green would be a really good rotational piece for Montez Sweat, or you can have two little speedsters on the edge to try to beat some of these tackles in the NFC North. So Mike Green going to Chicago here from Marshall. So our next pick here, I'm going to go with Tet McMillan. I think the Seahawks, I feel like they want to try and make sure they get this quarterback position right. I think this is a scenario where they feel like they got to go best player available. They just traded DK Metcalf, so they don't really have that big threat at wide receiver anymore. You could maybe potentially look at guard, but there really isn't a guard at 18 that I feel like they could snag that's not really around their range. But I feel like McMillan is kind of the best value at 18 as of right now. With this next one, we're going to go with Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. Levante David is getting up there in age. He's, I think 34, 35, give or take a year. They definitely need that linebacker of the future. Could be a nice little mentor for Campbell to kind of pick the brain of David a little bit. So I think they kind of look to build towards the future and get one of the best players available, with Campbell being there at 19 for him. Denver, I think this is where you're kind of shaking your head, hoping that Amarian Hampton was there. He is not going to be there in this scenario. And Tet McMillan being gone too, I feel like that kind of hurts them a little bit at wide receiver. And for me, I'm not a big Matthew Golden fan. Like, I feel like he's a little bit overhyped. There were some plays I thought he did fine at Texas, but I think a lot of it was his quarterback play. If we go over to our wide receiver tab,
wide receivers.
Yeah. Yep. So they did pick up Evan Ingram from Jacksonville out of free agency. So they got their tight end set. I don't really know why this has tight end as a big need. D-line could be an option too. Like Buka could be an interesting play. But I feel like all these guys would be kind of reaches for Denver. Let's look over at our defensive line really quick, see who's available there. I think Derek Harmon could be a nice pickup here. You don't really have that big interior rusher, and I think honestly, you kind of look at maybe at Kenneth Grant here could be an option too, where you get that little big run stuffer. But I think with this division that's being set up with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, I think you're going to want more of that pass rusher kind of guy. So I think they're going to snag Derek Harmon here at pick 20 and make that very ferocious Denver defense even more ferocious with Nick Bonito over there and Pat Surtain in the secondary as well. So,
yep.
With the Pittsburgh Steelers, do they go Jackson Dart? Do they go young? Do they go and try to see if they can get the snag in Aaron Rodgers in free agency? Dustin, what are your kind of thoughts on this? If you're the Steelers, Jackson Dart, kind of a guy who is young but extremely raw, not really a guy you want to start right away. But if you go and sign Rodgers, this is a guy you could definitely sit under Rodgers until you feel like Jackson Dart is ready. So, what are your kind of thoughts if you feel like this could be a spot for Jackson Dart to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of Jackson Dart, falling in the first round, falling out of the first round. Those of you that know me, I don't really watch too much college football, so I don't know too much about Jackson Dart. But Drew, is he like I don't know if I want to say a first round pick talent, but is he like mid first round pick? Is he a late first round pick material? Like what
Yeah.
is Jackson Dart?
So Jackson Dart was a guy at Ole Miss that had a great scheme around him, had some good players around him. Actually put up probably better numbers than Cam Ward did at Miami. But Cam Ward's kind of got more of that NFL look. He's kind of got that body a little bit. Where Jackson Dart's really tall, but there's just some throws and some games he just really didn't show up for. There were some games where he would throw for like 5 or 6 touchdowns and would light it up. You're like, oh my gosh, this guy's great. And then he would go and play a Kentucky who's kind of a mid-team, didn't make a bowl game, would come up short in those kind of games. So I think that's kind of why you're starting to see him fall a little bit. He is 21 though, so I think that's kind of why you're kind of seeing him in this. He's kind of like that Zach Wilson kind of guy where he wasn't really projected in the first round, but has really rose up the boards for him. But he is 21, so that is the key here for Pittsburgh. So you could sit him, you could still snag your Aaron Rodgers and be like a guy you could be competitive with. I don't think Milroe would really be an option here. I don't really think that fits, but I think Jackson Dart could be. Let's go with Jackson Dart here because I think let's go with Dart. I think Rodgers to Pittsburgh is going to be all but locked. I think you can kind of give him that Jordan Love treatment while you kind of have Rodgers, and that way you can have that true passing of the torch. And I think Rodgers could definitely help him out. I feel like he would be open to helping him out. I think the media does kind of slander him a little bit. I do think he'd be willing to help him out.
Well, he did say he would sign for like $10 million. So it's like
I think Aaron Rodgers would kind of. He's kind of like Jordan Love. He's very tall, had some accuracy issues, but he's got the talent. He's got to kind of get those, maybe sit a couple years and kind of coach him up to what you need him to get to. So Jackson Dart will go to Pittsburgh at 21 in this one. Our next pick, Colson Loveland is not in this available at pick 22. I feel like the Chargers definitely want him, getting that Jim Harbaugh connection. So there is no tight end for Jim Harbaugh in this. However, we do have a D lineman at Michigan and is a need for the Chargers. Kenneth Grant, our big, nasty nose tackle. They don't really have that big, nasty guy that could really stuff the run. Could definitely be a disruptor over the center. So Kenneth Grant being reunited with Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. He gets
lots
his guy.
of Michigan defensive players going off the board in round 1. I like to see it.
Yeah. Yep, Michigan had a very, very good defense and was a big reason why they even made a bowl game to begin with was that defense alone. So this one, I spoke to Dustin about this earlier with Green Bay before the show, maybe a couple days ago, maybe a week ago. Give him a long snapper. No, I'm just kidding.
I wish.
Corner. I know there's been some rumors about them taking a corner here. They don't have Eric Stokes, but they did pick up Nate Hobbs, a nice little slot corner. I think they could look at potentially corner in maybe the later rounds. I'm not a big hater of Corey. I think Corey Ballantyne's still over there, right? Carrington Ballantyne or Corey Ballantyne, whatever his name is.
Yeah, it's either Ballantyne or Valentine. I can't remember which one is staying.
I think they got some nice rotational guys over there. So I don't think corner is the biggest need here. I think they could afford to pass on a Barron. But the reason why I'm saying they're going to pass on corner, they're going to go with an edge here from Boston College. Kind of similar to what Kenneth Grant to the Chargers was, the college connection. Jeff Hafley recruited Donovan Ezeraku and coached him at Boston College. Donovan Ezeraku will be a Green Bay Packer at 23. because they have that familiar working relationship. He knows what Jeff Hafley wants. And definitely a guy that is a little bit different than Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary's more that big, beefier kind of edge rusher. Will kind of try to power you through. Ezraku's very, very different. He does not. He's going to be a guy where he'll lose at the point of attack. He's not going to try to come back after. If he loses that first rep, he's not going to come back with. But he's very, very fast. Was pretty much the nation's leading sack leader until Mike Green came in during the bowl game. But before the bowl game, it was Ezraku. So I think Ezraku goes to Green Bay here. They get that edge rusher. I think Lucas Van Ness's time is all but done in Green Bay. I think they're gonna maybe make him a rotational piece or try to kick him inside. So this pick is the pick we've been waiting for. The Minnesota Vikings at pick 24 will be trading back in this draft.
Hey.
So Vikings fans will rejoice that they get more picks in the draft. I do think they're going to give Kansas City a call. So our friend over at the TPT podcast, Jaden's Jerseys, follow him on TikTok if you haven't. He'll be happy with this. They're going to go get their tackle of the future. I know they just signed a guy, but they can move some guys around to get the guy that they really want in this. But they're going to go and trade the Vikings pick 31. They're going to send pick 66. The Vikings are going to send 97. And this will be... and let's give them a pick 133 as well. From the Chiefs side.
Oh, the Chiefs, okay.
Yep. And then we're going to give them 187. And then we're going to pick up 2 7s. The top 2 7s. Let's do the top 2 7s, because they're going to want that last pick at the end. So, all right. So we're going to go. It's going to be a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving draft picks, but this is what will work for the Vikings. They're going to move up with the Kirk comp pick, go to the earlier part of the third round, and try to maybe snag somebody that they can get maybe that fell from the second round into day 3. So with this pick, Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to go and they're going to draft our first guard of the day. They're going to look at Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. I know Minnesota fans are going to be kicking themselves that he's not falling in the draft, but they do need to go and replace Joe Thuney. They just signed their left tackle. They still have Creed Humphrey. Jawan Taylor, unfortunately, still there if you're a Chiefs fan at right tackle, but you only got one more year, Jawan Taylor, then you can go draft your replacement later on. And there just really isn't an offensive tackle that I feel like could really sit behind Jawan Taylor. But with Zabel, too, I feel like if Jawan Taylor were to struggle and you want to maybe sit Zabel a little bit, redshirt him a little bit, you could plug and play him in place of Jawan Taylor. If he's really starting to become that liability, you can maybe flip him over. He's a guy that can play all 5 positions on the offensive line. My comp for him has been Elgin Jenkins, zone blocking guy. View that they're going to definitely view that as a valuable asset for their team. So I think the Chiefs snagging them at 24 would be a huge steal for them. And that leaves the Houston Texans. They do need a guard. So I think this kind of fits for the Chiefs. They jump ahead of the Texans. They go get their guard of the future. They could be looking at Tyler Booker. Let's look at our offensive tackles here really quick. I think this is where they're going to go and get Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. They lost Laramie Tunsil to the Washington Commanders. Josh Simmons will, coming off an injury, got replaced by Donovan Jackson from his injury. Josh Simmons will be the left tackle for the Houston Texans for this upcoming year. And with this next pick with the Rams, they lost Tre'Davious White. They're really kind of searching for that corner. Sean McVay is going to be doing cartwheels in the draft room. That Jahdae Barron is still there at 26. Jahdae Barron to the Rams seems all but great fit for him. They're definitely happy with that. They're getting probably the biggest steal of the draft of the night. So the Rams getting Barron here would be huge. So with this next pick, we got the Baltimore Ravens. I think there's not a lot of edge guys anymore. We could look at safety. They could look at a Marcus Williams replacement. But I do feel like this is a guy that, this is a team that they could maybe look at safety later on. James Pierce could be interesting. They kind of run that 3-4 scheme over there. But they do have a Jabo. They do have a Wet over there. So I'm not 100% sure if they really want to go edge. I think they might be willing to buy another year. But I think for this, you got to look at guard here. I think they're going to look at Tyler Booker from Alabama, best power blocker in the draft. Kind of has slow feet, not really a fit for the Vikings, but for a team like the Ravens that loves to run block and loves to run the ball, Tyler Booker would be a great fit for him, pulling them along the line, getting to the second level, bulldozing guys. Tyler Booker to the Baltimore Ravens here, great fit for Baltimore there. Which then leaves the Detroit Lions. I think they're kind of looking at Tyler Booker here. I think Mahogany's going to go ahead and replace Kevin Zeitler. Had a really good game against Washington. One of the lone bright spots from that Detroit Washington game was you got your answer for Mahogany. Graham Glasgow seems to be a guy that he's okay, but I think that could be looking at an improvement there. But I do think Detroit, they need an edge rusher really, really bad. Zadarius Smith is gone. James Pierce Jr. seems to be the fit for Detroit here. Yeah, like I said, the Aiden Hutchinson will be back, but they really don't have that edge rusher on the opposite part of Aiden there. So Pierce will get a lot of one-on-one looks. Also, a little bit of a nice compliment. Aiden Hutchinson's kind of more that all-around edge rusher. He can run block. He can stuff the run. He can rush the passer. Where James Pierce will be more that speed guy. So Detroit will be getting James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee with this pick here. And Washington, they're going to go and try to load up offense as much as they can. With that said, they're going to go look at wide receiver here in this spot. I think Emeka Egbuka would be a great fit for Washington. He's a great route runner. I think he should be ahead of Matthew Golden here. Egbuka would be a great fit for Washington. They got Debo, who's going to be more of that gadgety kind of running back. Got Terry McLaurin. But giving them those three deep wide receivers there in Washington will be huge for Jaden Daniels. So Emeka Egbuka will be going to Washington, trying to load up as much as they can in the passing game for Jaden Daniels. Buffalo Bills. What can we say? Yep. All of it's so close every year, but can never seem to get past the Chiefs. I think a big reason being is I think they got to shore up their trenches. Josh Allen can't be Superman all by himself. I think in this spot, your guards are gone, your tackles are gone. I think they're fine offensively, but defensive tackle, they really just got Ed Oliver, and they got the edge rushers with Gregory Rousseau. But I think if you got him, that second edge rusher I think that'd be huge for their defense. And just seems time and time again, the defense just can't get past Mahomes. Defensive line, I think they're going to look at Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan, I have as my best, one of the best edge rushers, or not edge rushers, but defensive tackles in this class. I feel like he could be a Chris Jones kind of player. He's got this humongous ceiling, can stuff the run really well, and that's a big testament to a good running back. But the fact that he can go and rush the passer on top of that with 6 sacks and be one of the top run stuffers amongst this defensive tackle class, he just seems to be the all-around defensive tackle, my second best D lineman in this draft class. So Walter Nolan to the Buffalo Bills. And that leaves the Minnesota Vikings just ahead of Philadelphia. So
can the Vikings pull a 2020 scenario here, putting something before the Eagles,
Yeah, maybe. So Dustin, if you want to kind of break down our draft needs for maybe if we have any fans out there that may not be a Viking fan, you can kind of break down our needs of what you feel like we kind of need in judging the board right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's needs, but there's also not needs at the same time for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they went out and spent $250 million, just on their free agents this year. They've gotten a lot of offensive linemen, a couple defensive linemen. They're all a little older though, so. Could the Vikings look to replace, one of those guys on, in the trenches where it's on the offense or the defensive line? Could they go running back? Because I know Aaron Jones is a little older. He says he's fresh and all that, but he's still going into his 30s. I know they traded for Jordan Mason. He's a little younger, but could they look for a quicker guy too? Someone that will be involved in the pass game a little more. Safety, Harrison Smith is, this is probably most likely his last year with the Vikings before he retires. Linebacker can get a little thin with Pace and Cashman both being injured at different times throughout the year. They're not super reliable. So what can the Vikings do? They kind of have to look into the future at, what they're going to do with these picks. And they have a whole draft to kind of look at that too. So outside of the 4 picks that they started with, trading back, like this scenario would help them out a lot. I have to look at how many picks they all got, but just in this scenario, they have a lot of picks to kind of shore up their I guess, quote unquote, holes that they have after free agency. So,
yeah. So I think you're good with the defensive backs. We'll break down. I know you mentioned safety. That is our top need of what they're projecting right now. I don't mind Theo Jackson. I think you can kind of redshirt a safety potentially, and maybe start Theo Jackson a year and then plug and play and rotate this first round rookie in their year 1 year. But Malachi Starks, he's my safety one if you're talking about pure talent, but I do have some concerns about his character off the field. He is one of those Georgia guys that loves to, let's say, be Ricky Bobby 2.0 out in the streets, kind of like a Jalen Carter, not to the extent of a Jalen Carter, but he has been he was arrested for reckless driving. So that's something that you
is he a Lewis Cine 2.0 from Georgia?
No. So the Viking fans, I'm gonna scoot up here. So Malachi
We're getting
Starks,
serious here.
Yes. Malachi Starks is nothing like Lewis Cine, in my opinion. I think Malachi Starks is more of a Cam Bynum-esque kind of player. Lewis Cine is more of that Harrison Smith style of player. So Malachi Starks is going to be more of your Brian Branch style. You can go play the nickelback, play up top, and be that center field safety for you. You can even move him in the box if you want to, but he's not necessarily the best at that. But I would say that is probably his weaker spot there. But I do think there might be some character concerns with Starks. Eman Warrior, I know, has been another guy that's been really a popular mock for the Vikings. He's an athletic freak, but he's more of that hybrid linebacker, so he's going to be more of your box safety. This, I do feel like, could potentially be your Lewis Cine 2.0 is Nick Emanwari. He is not a very good safety when it comes to tracking balls on the deep ball. And I just don't see him being a good fit for the Vikings and what Brian Flores wants to run. I think you need to have that safety that can track the balls down deep, who knows what they're doing. I don't know if Eman Ward is really a good fit for the Vikings. I don't think he'd really work out for us. But if we go to our corners here, kind of our other need, I know a lot of Viking fans are kind of looking at Asante Samuel Jr. Post-draft. They want to sign him because they know if they sign him, he doesn't go to the comp formula. If they don't want to sign him, you can look at corners here. Maxwell Harrison, he's that speed freak, but is an absolute liability in the run game. Cannot tackle worth a damn whatsoever. Kind of your Deion Sanders style of play. Will be elite in coverage, but just can't stop the run. So if you go to a team like Detroit and they're using Jahmyr Gibbs, they're just going to run at him with Gibbs, and you're going to get those little Caleb Evans highlight reels where he's juking him out of his shoes, and that could be a fear for Maxwell Harrison. But he is a speedster, could catch up with his recovery speed, so that could be tempting. And then we got Siobhan Revel Jr. He's a 6'2" corner. I feel like he's kind of your replacement for Kyrie Jackson. This is the guy we took in our Vikings mock last episode. Kind of mentioned him a little bit, so if you want a little bit more deep dive into that, you can go to our previous episode there. And then we got Trey Amos and Benjamin Morrison. I think that anything past this is kind of reaching for it. But Trey Amos was an Alabama corner. So some people like to argue DBU, transferred to Ole Miss, got that CB1 job. Vikings did meet with him at the Combine, so that's something worth noting. And then Benjamin Morrison, there hasn't been any steam of the Vikings meeting with him, but he was a top 5, top 10 pick in the pre-draft process, had an injury, and now has really tumbled down the board. So Benjamin Morrison at 45 could be an interesting scenario too, but I know the Vikings haven't met with them. We don't really have a D-line prospect anymore. All of our guards are really gone too, because Gray Zabel and Tyler Booker are there, but we do have Donovan Jackson. The Vikings did meet with them allegedly on a top 30 visit. You could look at him. Only concerns I have is he didn't grade the best in true pass block grade. He was at like 42, which could be a little bit of a concern, but he does really well in the run game. But might need a little bit of a balance there. You got Will Fries on one side. I think he can maybe kind of get away with it. But Blake Brandel didn't do so bad with Darisaw, and now you have Ryan Kelly in the mix. I feel like Blake Brandel could get another shot there. Then we got our running backs. I know you mentioned that was our last one there. Travion Henderson could be an option. I know, Dustin, you were mentioning the speed backs. Travion Henderson could be an option here. I do like Travion a lot. I don't. I know the running backs in the first round's not the most ideal pickup, but you could go with that route. But
I don't see
think
them
the
going
story-
running back in the first round, honestly.
Yeah.
That's like a second, third, fourth round kind of pick.
Yeah, I honestly feel like Rashard Smith out of SMU. He's a little bit further down, but I feel like he could be. It seems to be a lot of buzz with him and the Vikings, kind of in that like fourth, fifth round range out of SMU, former Miami Hurricane. But I think in this scenario, I still think you got to go Siobhan Revel. I right now, I think I'm okay with. I think he provides the best value right now. I think safety is a position you can get later on in the draft. You can we found Cam Bynum in the fourth round, fifth round a few years ago. And Theo Jackson hasn't played that bad. So, and you're kind of getting him on the cheap, so you might be able to have a steal there. So, and the only way to really know if Theo Jackson's going to be legit as a starter is to have him be a starter for a year. So, and like I said, I think this is a chance here. I think you kind of plug and play with some young guys, see if they have that the capability of being an every down starter. So I'm okay with Theo Jackson being our starting safety going into 2025. So Siobhan Revel out of East Carolina, I think you kind of need that big, tall, lengthy corner. He's going to be 24 years old, but Vikings haven't shied away from older corners with taking guys like Mekhi Blackman. So Revel, good pickup for the Vikings here at 31. Seems to be a lot of interest there. Now, Philly, they need a safety. I feel like they don't really have that true safety. I know they're kind of been throwing Keely Ringo out there. They're kind of throwing Sidney Brown out there, but he's coming up. He had an injury last year. Malachi Starks, I feel like, Philadelphia's kind of had that Georgia connection. I think they're going to continue that. And the reckless driving doesn't really seem to shy them away from anything.
Eagle. I don't know why.
Yeah, he kind of gives that Eagle vibe. So I think they're going to go safety with Starks and Eman Worry. So I'm going to give him Malachi Starks here. So, and that will conclude the first round of the mock. So, Dustin, if you want to kind of give your thoughts on going corner here in our little mock draft.
Yeah, I mean, corner is you can never have enough of them, and I'll always say that too. You know, I think Mike Zimmer even said that you can never have enough corners. That's going with saying, they re-signed Byron Murphy, they signed Isaiah Rodgers, they signed Jeff Okudah, they signed, a couple other guys, and then going in the draft to, using your first round pick on a corner. We haven't had, very good luck with drafting corners first round. They've honestly either have not made it in life or they just have been total busts. There's no in between, unfortunately. So I think you got to hit on a corner at some point, and I think what's his name?
Siobhan Revel.
Forgot who we picked. Siobhan Revel, yes. I couldn't think of it. But going with a corner like that, I think, like you said, the Kyrie Jackson replacement pretty much. I think that's what the Vikings need. They need a long, tall, physical corner, and I think that should be a really good pick for the Vikings. And if they want to sign Asante Samuel Jr., they can do that too for a year or two, whatever it takes, because a lot of these other corners that the Vikings signed aren't here for more than a year or two. So it's not like you're just loading up on corners for the next 5 years and just using that in a rotation. You're signing these guys for 1-year deals, 2-year deals, and can move on from them. And using your draft picks on a corner will set you up perfectly for the future as well. I mean, we can't forget Mekhi Blackman too. He's coming off of injury, so preseason and training camp will definitely tell us, who's ready to play, who's not. I mean, there's going to be a good handful of cuts, by week 1 for that corner position. So Siobhan Revel Jr., I think, will be a perfect fit for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep, and if you were a big McCarthyism fan out there, Siobhan Revel did play against that national championship Michigan team. It was one of those little we call it like cupcake games, those little beatdown games for Michigan. But Siobhan Revel was like one of the only guys that really stood out. So Revel really held his own against that Michigan offense, really came up big in the running game, and kind of made some plays in the passing game too. So, and I don't even think he gave up a touchdown, which is really big. So And he was actually a really popular portal candidate. So he decided to kind of take what Genty did and stay with the school and stay loyal. So I think for a team like the Vikings, that could definitely speak to the character of Siobhan Rebel. Is definitely a good kid, not really a guy you're going to have issues with off the field. So I think Rebel would be a really good pickup. I think a guy like that, he is coming off of an ACL tear, unfortunately, and I think that's kind of why you're starting to see him fall, because like when that ACL tear wasn't really being talked about, he was kind of getting mocked to where like John A. Barron is in that mid-teens pick, and now he's starting to fall because of the ACL tear. So I think you kind of get a nice little steal here at 31 for the Vikings at that position. So.
Hell yeah. I don't think that you can really go wrong with, the positions I mentioned, whether that's, I personally think they'll probably go defensive line just because of the age group and just kind of like what you're working with too. You got Harrison Phillips. I don't know how long he's going to stay a Minnesota Viking. I've heard, things from other people, not sources, but things like, they could probably move on from him in a year or two or whatever. But you got Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, where, they're both a little older. They're on the wrong side of 30. Effective players, but still, they're older. And I think a guy like Duron Hammond?
Derek Harmon.
Derek Harmon, that's who it was. A guy like that, picking him up, I think will fit into a rotation. And I don't think you can really go edge. You're pretty good at that position. So offensive line and defensive line and corner, I think, are your three can't go wrong picks, in the draft for your first round pick. So yeah, you can't go wrong with those.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping for a defensive line pick, but I do think that corner is probably the favorite to be selected for the Vikings. Corner, safety.
Depends on who falls, though.
Yeah, and we don't really know. So, and this is just what we would do, or what I would do personally, per se. I know we got Dustin's little inputs every now and then to kind of solve it and kind of.
I know nothing.
We just wanted to give you a little bit
straight up.
We just kind of wanted to kind of get your thoughts. You weren't just sitting there clicking buttons, being our little
I love doing that, though.
Keyboard warrior there. So
I love being the keyboard warrior.
Yep. So so like I said, I mean, I would love if Derek Harmon fell, but I am a big Walter Nolan guy. I really do hope the Vikings do snag him. But there hasn't been any really buzz of them bringing in Walter Nolan. So, but Vikings have done it before. Where Christian Darrisaw, they took him and there was no connection whatsoever with him and the Vikings. It was Rashawn Slater or bust, it kind of felt like. So, that was with Rick Spielman. That'd be the first for Kwesi, but, still young in his GM days, so there might be a first time for everything, but you never know with these things. So definitely going to be excited. It's like a kid on Christmas. You don't know what you're going to get. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah. Has Paul Hampton, have you seen his tweets on who he's all met with?
Oh, yeah. Yep, for sure. Yeah. I think he I saw him say that we met with Donovan Jackson, and I think we saw from the Vikings fan page too. So I think those are our two Viking little what do you call it?
Insiders.
Insiders or beat guys, or kind of they regurgitate accounts or whatever you call them. So aggregate accounts.
Aggregators.
I think is what they're called. Yeah, aggregators. Yeah. So.
All right, well, that will do it for our 2025 total NFL mock draft. Like Drew said before, we did one for the Minnesota Vikings. Let me speak here. Jeez. So make sure you guys go check that out. That will be towards the end of this video. You guys can click on that. It'll take you right to it. But yeah, we'll probably be on after the draft sometime, maybe Saturday, Sunday-ish, Monday-ish, kind of talk about it, let it kind of marinate a little bit with us, and then we can kind of go from there. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please leave a like if you guys are on YouTube. Leave a good review if you are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Skol Vikes.